Hi, this is Miss Goodale, and today I'm going to be talking about reflected coordinates. I'm going to talk a little bit about doing that on a coordinate grid and also on without a coordinate grid. So first, let's just show doing so with a coordinate grid. So if I have a coordinate grid here, and I'll make it fairly big. And each of my spaces is going to be 1. So let me just do an example of 2 and 4. So 2 comma 4. And if I want to reflect that point across the x-axis, that means that I would reflect it across this axis right here. This is x, this is y, so this axis right here is my x-axis. So that means that the only thing that is going to change is I'm going to have it exactly on the other side. So this goes with our lesson on symmetry also. So in order to reflect that across the x-axis, that means I'm going to go the same distance here. So it's not going to go anywhere this way. It's going to go across this way, up and down. Okay, because that is the x-axis. So I'm going to go down, and I want to go the same distance on the other side. So instead of going up 4, I'm going to go back down here to the 0, and I'm going to go down 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So then my reflected point is still 2, but instead of 2, 4, it's going to be 2, negative 4. Okay, so that would be 2, negative 4. And one thing that I want to point out, and I'll talk about this more when we do this without the grid, but if it's across the x-axis, that means the x, or the first number, stays the same. Okay, and we just proved that because we went across this and we showed it on our grid. The one that changes, though, the y becomes the opposite. So that would be the second number. That means you just changed the sign. So on this one, it was positive 4, and this one, it's negative 4. Okay, so let's do another one. Let's do negative 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, comma, let's do negative 3. So 1, 2, 3. Okay, so I'm going to write this down. Reflect negative 5, negative 3 across let's do the y-axis instead. So this is negative 5, negative 3, and I'm going to go across the y-axis, and we'll write that in later. So that means instead of going across this one, which is the x, I'm going across the y, so I'm going this way, okay, left to right. So that means I'm going to stay in a line and I'm going to go back to 0. And instead of going 5 to the left for -5, I'm going to go 5 the other or opposite direction for +5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And it looks like my writing from my other coordinate got in the way, so I'm going to move that down a little bit. Okay, so put my dot here. This is +5, still -3. So this time, I look at my numbers, and if I go across the y-axis, this is the y, which is the second value, xy. Second value stays the same. So the y stays the same this time. And then the x becomes the opposite. Okay, so whichever axis you are reflecting across, that's actually the one that stays the same. This one is across the x-axis, the x is staying the same. This one is across the y-axis, the y is staying the same. So I showed you how to do this using a coordinate grid. Now I'm going to see if we can do some without a coordinate grid. So to make this short, I'm going to say reflect, and then for 2 across, let's say y-axis, and that would be equals, just kind of making a shortcut here. Okay, so if I'm going across the y-axis, y stays the same. X, y, so my 2 is staying the same. I can go ahead and rewrite that. Then I look, my x, it says becomes the opposite. So all I have to do, this is +4, it just becomes a -4. Okay, let me get another number. 7, 9. And let's go across the x-axis. Okay, and so this time my x is 7, so my 7 stays the same. And my 9, my y, becomes the opposite. So instead of +9, it becomes a -9. Okay, -1, +6. And let's do another one across the x-axis. And your x stays the same, so your -1 stays the same. Your y becomes the opposite. Okay, now, what if we had a number with 0? So let's say we have 0, 2. And I'm going to reflect 0, 2 across the, let's do that one across the x-axis. So our x is 0, so that's actually going to stay the same. And our 2 is going to become the opposite, so we're going to go in the opposite direction. Okay, can I reflect something across, or 0 across the x or y axis? I cannot. If my first number is 0, I cannot reflect that because the opposite of 0 is 0. So it has to be across the opposite axis. Okay, it can't, my 0 cannot be reflected across an axis that it is sitting on. Okay,